Trauma. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it really, truly mean for our minds, for our bodies, for our faith? Well, in this explainer, we're going to unpack a faith-based perspective on healing, drawing straight from the Neuro-Renewal course to map out that patient road from suffering all the way to hope.
Wow, this one sentence just gets right to the absolute heart of the traumatic experience, doesn't it? It's that huge, confusing disconnect between what your logical brain knows and what your body is screaming. So why does that split even happen? Let's dive into that. To get to the bottom of that disconnect, we have to start with a really clear definition. Because trauma is so much more than just a bad memory that eventually fades away. As our source material puts it, it's like an enduring echo. And listen to that language, it's so specific. Trauma isn't just something that happens to you, it becomes deeply impressed upon you. It's like an experience that leaves a stamp, one that can fundamentally change your inner world and your basic sense of safety. And look at this, the impact is it's so wide-ranging. This is not just a mental thing. Trauma can actually rewire our core systems, things like our arousal levels, what our brain pays attention to, our ability to trust other people, and our sense of safety in relationships. It even affects what's called embodiment, which is really just our feeling of being at home in our own skin. All right, so let's get into the actual mechanics of why the body can feel so unsafe, even when your mind knows everything is okay. This brings us right to this crucial relationship between memory and the body's own built-in alarm system. A normal memory is something we can usually recall like a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But a traumatic memory? It's often really fragmented and disorderly. It can literally crash back into the present, not as a thought, but as a sudden feeling, a flash of an image, or just a huge wave of physical panic.
And that's where triggers come in. Now, a trigger isn't some kind of magic. It's simply a learned association. A totally neutral cue. It could be a sound, a smell, a closed door, gets hardwired to that past danger. So when that cue shows up again, the body's alarm just goes off, and you react instantly, all before the thinking part of your brain has a chance to catch up and say, whoa, hey, we're actually safe right now.
Now, this next part is so important. This is where the source material brings in this really vital pastoral and theological balance. It asks the question, how do we give the wound the respect and attention it deserves without letting it become a person's entire identity? It's a tightrope walk.
This chart just lays it out so clearly. On the one hand, you have honoring trauma. That means we acknowledge the wound is real, we get that the body remembers, and we know that healing is going to take patience. But on the other hand, there's a danger of enthroning trauma. That's when the trauma becomes the only story. It's when a person's whole identity is surrendered to that suffering, and it becomes a permanent reason to not grow. That difference is subtle, but it is absolutely massive. So the path forward that's proposed here is this idea of redemptive realism. I love that phrase. It's a path that insists on holding two truths at the exact same time. One, yes, the wound is profoundly real. The body remembers, the pain is valid. And two, at the same time, the hope of the gospel also speaks directly into that reality. It refuses to let go of either truth.
So how does this redemptive realism actually play out? Well, if the problem is a deep wound, the solution being offered isn't some five-step formula or a detached explanation. It's what the source calls a ministry of presence.
And the theological bedrock for this whole approach is built on passages just like these. They all point to a God who is near to the brokenhearted, who binds up wounds, and who is actively working for redemption, even while we are still groaning and hurting.
This quote right here, this is basically the thesis of the whole chapter. The answer isn't about having all the right theological arguments for why something terrible happened. It's about encountering the actual presence of Christ in the middle of the suffering itself. It's relational, not academic.
And this presence is often found through something the Course calls guided prayer. Now, the source is really careful here to say this isn't about suggestive spiritual theatrics. Nope. It's simply about paying prayerful attention to those places where pain and fear are still active, and then bringing all of that honestly before God. So, what does this actually look like in a practical counseling setting? This last section offers some real wisdom for an approach that embodies all these principles, and it all comes down to patience and humility. You can see right here that good trauma care, from this perspective, is a slow, layered process. It's not a race. It starts with just creating safety, stabilization. Then it moves to truthfully naming what happened, making real space for grief, rethinking old beliefs about God and yourself, and only then, slowly, gradually,
re-engaging with the fullness of life.
So the ultimate goal here isn't a quick fix. It's what the book calls a ministry of patient integration. It's about patiently, over time, bringing all those fragmented pieces back into a coherent whole. Your body, your memory, your relationships, and your faith. They all need attention.
Okay, let's put this to the test. Think about this scenario from the text. A person you're counseling knows she's safe, but her body just panics every time the office door closes. Based on everything we've just talked about, how would a counselor help? How could you apply these ideas of patience and safety and integration without making things worse? It's a really good question to sit with.
And that really brings us to our final thought. We live in a world that just loves efficiency and quick fixes. But trauma simply doesn't work that way. So the big question for all of us is, what does it truly mean, for ourselves and for the people we care about, to reject those easy answers, and instead choose the long, patient, and ultimately redemptive path toward healing?